Good evening, assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon, and of course, good morning to wherever you are, whichever part of the world you are in. My name is YUSUF ISMAIL from the South African Debate Initiative, and if you are in the United Kingdom, you probably have access to this stream, which will be coming to you via the Coventry Faith Foundation. Click on like and subscribe to the South African Debate Initiative. We want to share these streams with a lot of people to as wide a place as possible. Right now, I am in fact fighting a costs order that has been brought, and judgment was obtained against myself and the South African Debate Initiative, as well as a number of other channels like Loving Life TV and so on. If those of you who are with us from the beginning will recall that we had a program in February 2023, long before I joined, long before the Gaza genocide started. And of course, at the stage, long before we joined forces with the Coventry Faith Foundation. And at that point in time, we were having discussions on Zionism in a general sense. And of course, movements like the NSPCA. We discussed abuse that was taking place within these organizations. They subsequently got an interdict. I never opposed it. I didn't have the time to oppose it, but now they've got a cost order against us. So we are basically busy battling that. It's about 6 or 7 respondents. And I think this is a debacle with free speech, is that if you are backed by a multi-million-dollar powerhouse, a media outlet, you've got that buffer, which in fact allows you the ability and the opportunity to protect yourself, and of course to say things, and the only accountability you would have is against the main station, or the main media outlet. But with individuals like ourselves that don't have this big budgetary media outlet to back us, and by and large we do this on an individual level. We take chances and risks in terms of what we can say and what is put out there. And this is a particular challenge that we have with this, and with some of the other programs that we've had in the past. You would have noticed that a number of our streams were uploaded onto YouTube and then they were removed. And clearly they were removed because the content was unpalatable to YouTube, and YouTube is, of course, censoring. During the COVID era, the same thing happened. You couldn't mention the V word. That was a dirty word. And now, unfortunately, you have a situation with the G word, the genocide word. And so we're hoping that at least so far they haven't removed the past 3 streams. The stream before the third one was removed by YouTube for some reason, but you can check it up on Rumble. So today we're going to focus on the aspect of the so-called white genocide myth versus the Israeli genocide myth. And the background behind this, I just want people to know, is that the background behind this entire thing is that about a couple of months ago, what had happened in South Africa in February 2025, this notorious scoundrel, scumbag, white supremacist, narcissistic psychopath known as Donald Trump, in February 2025 of this past year, he granted an asylum to white South Africans, primarily Afrikaners, to grant asylum to them under these false claims of systemic violence and racial discrimination linked allegedly to South Africa's post-apartheid land reform policies. Now, I may add one thing, that for the past 30 years post-democracy, we have a situation that a small, tiny minority of the population in South Africa control the majority of land. So the majority of land in South Africa in 2025, the vast majority of land in South Africa in 2025 is basically made up of white ownership. So whites basically own the vast majority of land, and blacks own a few. What the Trump administration did is that they introduced and he signed an executive order in terms of which what he called Mission South Africa, in terms of which he basically claimed, quite falsely, that there was a genocide happening in South Africa against white people. And that essentially this now led to the white minority, and particularly the Afrikaner community, believe it or not, facing purported persecution. And that persecution would meet the threshold for refugee status under international law. It's total rubbish, total bunkum, and total hogwash. Total hogwash. So in January 2025, he signed an executive order. And in terms of that executive order, he basically shut down all refugee admissions, meaning that there are people out there who are genuinely refugees. They were shut down. But he made a single exception for white South Africans. And so on the 7th of February, he signed an executive order 14204. Apologies if I'm tired because I had a pretty long day. I'm in court every single day. But coming back to what I'm saying, he signed an executive order, and that executive order ended all foreign aid to South Africa, claiming that its government had been engaged in race-based discrimination. Now, this is total rubbish because there is no race-based discrimination in South Africa. In fact, whites are still at the upper tiers of the economic ladder, and whites own majority land. In fact, if I look at statistics, if you just do a Google search, white ownership of land in South Africa, 72% of farms and agricultural holdings are owned by white individuals who make up about 7.3% of the population, whilst black Africans, that constitute approximately 81.4% of the population, own only 4% of the land. And much of that white-owned land is unproductive and fallow. There is a website called the Action for Southern Africa, the Facts Land Reform in South Africa. And let me just share the screen with you so that people can know the reality of the kind of hogwash that Trump has been promoting at different levels. But have a look at this. If we can share this, Mohammed. So here we are. Can you see this? That in the distance is, I think, what they call the Lost City or Sun City. Never been there, but that was this individual called Saul Kerzner who was behind it many years back. So coming to what I'm saying here, let me just try and expand the screen. And this is from a website called Action for Southern Africa, the Facts Land Reform in South Africa. And it starts off by saying, look at it here. That the press has been awash with articles attacking South Africa's progressive legislation modernizing land ownership, because there's a new bill called the Expropriation Act, which has been there's been talk about it being passed for many, many years. It hasn't been, I think that the distinction here is that it hasn't yet gone into implementation for certain technical reasons. But in terms of that, it allows expropriation, but the farmers have to be compensated equitably. So there's no such thing as expropriation without compensation. That just simply does not exist. That doesn't exist. It never existed in South Africa, and it doesn't exist now. So this basic issue of Trump's executive order arises out of these so-called allegations that whites are being persecuted. Look at the facts here. Currently, 72%, look at this here, 72% of farms and agricultural holdings are owned by white individuals. I see my laptop's heating up for some reason. I hope there's no problem, but are owned by white individuals who make up about 7.3% of the population. Amazing. And they constitute, and whilst black Africans, constituting 81% of the population, own only 4% of the land. So explain to me, for the life of me, how are these whites refugees? Can you see the lunacy behind Donald Trump? And why we've been calling up to Donald Trump as an idiot? I mean, the scumbag. Much of the white-owned land is unproductive and fallow. Agriculture contributes only 2.62% to South Africa's GDP, which is less than 1/3 of what it was during apartheid, when the Afrikaner nationalist state heavily subsidized the sector. So talking about farmers, talking about agriculture and all that rubbish, all that bullshit, well, it actually contributes only 2.6%. The imbalance is a consequence of colonialism and apartheid, and South Africa remains very unequal with wealth and opportunities, heavily biased in favor of the white population. The structural inequality brought about by apartheid remains. That's what John Pilger stated about 20 years ago, I think, in fact, even longer, 25 years ago, in that remarkable documentary in 1997 called Apartheid Did Not Die. So, is reform not long overdue? Is that not a necessary post-apartheid correction? And the government hasn't even gone far enough. In the new Expropriation Act, what it says is that expropriation of land should be done in accordance with the rules and ramifications and, of course, the principles and the spirit of the Constitution. We don't have time to go into that particular bill or the act right now, which we may do at a later time. But the reality of the situation is, if 72% of farms and agricultural holdings are owned by white individuals who make up about 7% of the population, whilst Africans constitute 81%, own only 4% of the land, how is this seen to be white persecution? Explain that to me. How is this white genocide? This is a sickness that you've got. When there's a real genocide happening in Gaza, that they shut up. But when there's something which is not genocide at all, which is totally fake, it's got nothing to do with the reality of the situation, they call that a genocide. Can you see it's like an inversion of reality? And so Trump and his backer, Elon Musk, a privileged child of apartheid, have weighed in, stating that there's racism against Afrikaners. So all this is lies, all this is false. So as a result of that, and the so-called executive order by Trump, where he now passes his ruling and essentially is asking people, giving white Afrikaners the ability to come and essentially, enter South Africa. What then basically happens? What then essentially happens is that people get caught up in this fantasy, in this total fantasy, this utter fantasy that you see that's got absolutely nothing to do with reality. So I want you to basically, I'm getting calls. Unfortunately, I can't take any calls now. I want you to basically have a look at this discussion that happened at the White House just about last week, and we'll basically unpack it and go through it. Let me just present the screen, share the screen, and I'm going to try and see this meeting between Ramaphosa and Trump. Here we are. Let's open this.
It will take him, President Trump, to their stories, to their perspective.
Let's go further.
Tremendous anger. I don't expect anything. We'll see what happens. We'll have a ruling and who knows what the ruling is going to mean. Yeah.
On that subject of Gaza, Mr. President, are you going to be speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu about Israel's renewed offensive there? Being a lot of concern from European countries.
And then they go into the genocide.
Are you going to be asking Prime Minister Netanyahu to tone down the offensive in Gaza to let more aid in?
Was that a question or a statement? This guy, you never change.
Mr. President, this time, what would it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for President.
You see, the question is, what will it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa? Now, I just presented the facts. It's not even a debate. It's not even subject to debate. I don't know anyone who would even want to basically debate this particular issue. But look at the response, and then Ramaphosa butts in.
Well, no, seriously.
I'd rather have him answer.
Yeah, I'd rather answer that. It will be,
Our president will respond to you.
yeah, let me,
Thank you, Mr. President.
it will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us on the quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that.
And then Trump butts in. Now he comes with these fake news.
We have thousands of stories talking about it.
Sure.
And we have documentaries, we have news stories. And that is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that?
So now you're going to see him playing this fake video showing a rabble-rouser from the economic freedom fighters called Julius Malema singing the anti-apartheid struggle song called Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer.
A couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are. Whatever to do, can we drop my membership from this useless parliament? Honorable. Yes, honorable member. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot, kill, Gaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer, pa, 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 kill Gaza, kill the poor, the farmer. The man of DAPE is a white man.
It goes on. He goes
So
on.
these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain. Was not called for the killing of white. Compensation, whether they like it or not, if
There to pay respects to their family member who's killed.
No, look at this. Look at this. Look what he shows
Now,
here.
this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites.
You see what the swine is showing? He's saying there was a procession that happened in Newcastle about in 2020 during the year of COVID. 2 people were killed. There was a murder, and it was during COVID where a lot of people had died. And then there were symbolic crosses placed on the road, and the community at large, black, white, colored, all collectively went and then attended this kind of symbolic memorial for 2 people that had been murdered. What this character says is that this is a mass burial site. Lies. There's no such mass burial site for whites in South Africa.
Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning.
And now you see what Ramaphosa says. He asked him where he's never seen this. He obviously didn't know. There is no such place of a mass burial site of whites in South Africa. It's a lie. In the same way they lied to you about Gaza, this is how they're lying. I mean, I'm a critic of the South African government. I've been for a number of years, many years. I've written articles in local papers. I've spoken publicly. I've spoken on podcasts. I criticize the South African government. I don't like Ramaphosa. One thing which I will not tolerate is falsehood and fake news. And the irony is that Trump's calling his own press fake news, but he's the one promoting the very fake news here in this particular meeting.
Those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers.
So you see that there are crosses here in the line, and these crosses were being carried in the Newcastle area. And what Trump says is that this is a mass grave, a mass burial site of white farmers having been murdered. Rubbish.
And those cars aren't driving. They're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it. Both sides of the road, you have crosses. Those people were all killed.
I see what he says.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. But, okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa.
It's in South Africa. No, it's basically, there's no burial site in South Africa like that. It was an event that took place in Newcastle. Nothing like that happened in South Africa.
Need to find out.
Then he comes to articles.
They also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet.
Okay.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
You know, you gotta get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States.
Look how rotten and corrupt this man is. He accepted it. So I assume the reporter knew that this was fake news that Trump was promoting. So he asked him about the Qatari jet, and then Trump loses his cool, starts calling him an idiot and all kinds of names. Listen to this part.
Force a jet, okay?
Let's go. Let's
and
listen.
It's a great thing.
Okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa.
We need to find out. I don't know.
Those people.
Okay.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? You know, you gotta get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing, they also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back, you ought to go back to your studio at NBC, because Brian Roberts and the people that run that place, they ought to be investigated. They are so terrible the way you run that network, and you're a disgrace. No more questions from you. Go ahead. Go ahead, talk about that.
So it's basically a raucous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jim.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation?
I don't
Just
know.
seen on the screen.
I don't know. Look,
So this it goes to these papers. Now look at this. That picture that he's holding there, this picture here that he's holding, the scumbag, or somewhere along the line, is a picture of an image that took place in DRC. Had nothing to do with South Africa. It was an image in DRC, and it was picked up by our local media outlets that this was people dying in DRC, and you see them in oxygen masks and so on. Nothing to do with South Africa.
well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. They're all.
You see, that's in DRC. That image is holding up is directly from DRC.
These are all white farmers that are being buried.
And he's saying it's white farmers. That's in DRC, and these are people with masks. I think it was during the COVID era. But that's fake news. It's got nothing whatsoever to do with white farmers, killing of whites, nothing. And he holds it up, and the scumbag says that these are what. That's why it made me so angry last week. If you listen to our program last week about Trump and the Muslim world, how these Arab leaders fawned over him, worshipped him like a god. I mean, this guy's got no credibility. He's a scam. The guy's a scam. He's a hatchet man. He's a con man. This guy is a professional con man. I don't even think this guy is a good businessman. If you watch this entire discussion, you know, Ramaphosa is a smooth talker, and he's a career politician, and he also has skeletons in his closet, a lot of skeletons in his closet. But Trump is arguably, and this United States administration at the present time, and I mean, they've been a lot of bad administrations in American history. I mean, just look at the Bush administration. I'm talking about not necessarily the first Bush administration, bad. I mean, but that guy was smart, George Herbert Walker Bush. His son was a maniac. I mean, knew nothing, and led two wars, the 9/11 period. But if you compare even that administration, as bad as it is, this administration is just a total, it's a total collection of loonies. I mean, total loonies. These are lunatics. These are lunatics running the asylum, and they're essentially dictating the world what is basically going on. This is a lunatic, an asylum being led by a bunch of lunatics and insane megalomaniacs. That's what it is.
He asks about a jet that was given. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know, you are so bad. You're such a bad reporter. This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Lies.
What's your reaction to those videos, Mr. President?
Yes, I want your reaction. Well, I think the videos are so. No. When you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what it is. And I have other friends in South Africa. I have people that left. One in particular.
Various policies, and in many cases on.
And you know, the men that you saw, the people that you saw in that movie, those are officials. Those are people that were in office. They had one march, they had a dance in your parliament, whatever you may call it, legislature.
Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies. And in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can take land.
Look at this idiot. You just saw the statistics that I presented from you. So Trump gives the idea that people can just take land in the same way that these bastard Israelis, because we've shown many pictures and many videos over the past several months of these Israeli rats in the West Bank literally taking land and houses of people. And now Trump is suggesting that that is happening in South Africa. I don't know. Is this because of the genocide application against Israel at the ICJ? I mean, what you are saying, you're allowing people to take land. That's exactly what the Israelis are doing in the West Bank, the so-called Judea and Samaria. They're taking land of the Palestinians. They kicking Palestinians out. They're taking up their fields, their gardens, their olive trees. They're destroying everything. This is what they're doing. It's not a South African thing. It's an Israeli thing.
The land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill...
So he says the people take they come on the property, they can kill the white farmer, and then they take the land. I mean, this guy's living in... He's coming out of... This is what you call someone coming out of an asylum.
The white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No.
Wow.
There is quite...
Nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get...
You can ask me, I'm a criminal lawyer.
Killed, unfortunately, through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people.
True.
And we have now...
The farmers are black. The farmers are not black.
We have now...
Lies again. The farmers are not black. There are a significant number of black farmers that are also present now. And a large number of black farmers have basically been killed. So Trump is suggesting that the farm killings, because there have been farmers that have been killed, no doubt, and that necessitates what he calls a genocide, and therefore allows them to get refugee status. But we're going to unpack this, and then we're going to move on to the subject, because I've had enough of this dog, and then we're going to move on to what's happening in Israel and Gaza.
Say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that...
People being killed in large numbers, according to him, are white.
Loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently. And,
Lies,
you know, I mean, we're here to talk about it. And
what is this guy thinking about? You know, their heads chopped off. Yes, I've seen vicious crimes, and a lot of the crimes are black-on-black violence in this country. The vast majority of crimes, 99% of the crimes in this country is black-on-black violence. But, you know, this reminds me, heads chopped off, similar to the kind of beheading baby stories or the mass rape. People are now, even in the local white community in South Africa, those Israeli supporters, promoting this kind of hogwash and rubbish. So I want to basically share with you something in terms of actual statistics. I want to, I just want to try and get out of this here. Let me see if I can go here. In terms of the murder of white farmers in South Africa, statistics versus blacks. So this is a report, strangely enough, from the BBC. Maybe people can trust the BBC. The BBC has now done away with Gary Lineker, unfortunately. So Gary Lineker won't be there hosting the 2026 World Cup. They stated he was going to be the next Des Lynam. The only reason now he's out is because he's been calling them out for having supported Israeli genocide. Let me see if I can open this and look at the facts, statistics of crime in South Africa. Let's see if we can open this up. Statistics of murder in South Africa by race. Where are we? I had something up a few days ago, and unfortunately, I don't seem to pick it up. Let's just see something if we can have this here. Yeah, we are. Okay. So, according to the period, this is the SAPS crime statistics that I have here. Let me just try and go through this. South Africa did not break down crime statistics by race, but according to the most recent data available from April to December 2024, this is in South Africa, by the way. I don't know what your murder rate in the United Kingdom is. From April to December 2024, there were 19,696 murders in South Africa. From April to December, 19,696 murders. South Africa is a far bigger country than the United Kingdom, so I don't know what your murder statistics are. But out of the 19,696 murders, only 36 of those murders were connected to farms. Only 36. And only 7 of the victims were farmers. The remaining 29 victims were farm workers who are predominantly Black in South Africa. So the scale of farm murders captured by South Africa's data essentially belies the whole notion that there is a genocide taking. Now, whilst white South Africans constitute 7% of the nation's population, they are 7%, but they own 70% of the land. They also have 20 times more wealth in South Africa than Blacks on average. In corporate South Africa, white individuals occupy about 62% of top management positions. White individuals. They control 62% of top management positions, whilst only 17% of leadership roles in terms of CEOs and so on amongst Blacks. Amongst Blacks, only 17% of Blacks held leadership roles, whereas 62% of whites owned the top management positions. 7% of the nation's whites owned 70% of the land. I mean, it's like this is economic apartheid that still is in existence 30 years after democracy. So there is inequality, there is discrimination. But it appears to me that it's all in favor of whites. And the ANC government hasn't done enough to redress these wrongs that have been around since the advent of apartheid. So if we talk about the idea of genocide, where is genocide? The only place where genocide is basically happening is in Gaza. Is in Gaza, totally in Gaza. There's no other genocide happening right now. Here is the report. Here, look at this book. Here's a report here. We've discussed this some time back. We may possibly go through a few things. This report here, it's called here. I think it shows the opposite. It says you feel like you are subhuman. I see it shows a mirror image. You feel like you are subhuman. You feel like you are subhuman. And this is the Amnesty International report, 292 page, which documents deliberate attack after attack by the Israelis against the Palestinians, mass murder and slaughter of the worst kind. So this basically is going to take us to today's program. And it's something which basically took place this week, which, you know, and Zeteo, this is the phenomenal program of Mahdi Hassan, this media outlet that has been formed by Mahdi Hassan. He asked the question in a Zeteo article, why did the burning girl matter in Vietnam but not in Gaza? There's a napalm girl photo. I don't know if you're familiar with the napalm girl photo. That shocked the world, and it essentially helped end the Vietnam War. But the point he was making in this article, that a viral video of a child surrounded by flames and other similar images in Gaza can't even provoke a ceasefire. So the argument is that this Vietnamese girl, her name was Pan Thi Kim Phuc. She was running naked, screaming in agony, and a body was burnt by napalm dropped by the US-backed South Vietnamese army. And that photo captured the raw, unspeakable truth, which became a catalyst that the war itself, the Vietnam War, had lost its moral justification. But now, 50 years later, the world is seeing again images of children burned alive, but this time the response is different. This time the images don't seem to pierce the Western mind the same way. On Monday, just 2 days ago, footage emerged from Gaza after an Israeli strike deliberately targeted children. It hit, and I want people to record this, it hit the Fahmi al-Jirjawi school in Gaza City. This school was sheltering hundreds of displaced Palestinian families, many sleeping in makeshift tents in the courtyards, in the classrooms. At least 36 people were murdered in the bombing, according to Al Jazeera, and many of them, in fact, nearly half were children. Dozens more were critically wounded, and bodies were burned beyond recognition. One clip in particular, which became famous, it was showing a 5-year-old girl by the name of Ward Jalal al-Sheikh Khalil trying to escape a burning classroom. And you can see her silhouette surrounded by flames. We've seen many images of people being burned alive. And then in this 11-second video shot from a distance, it spread on Telegram. You could barely see her form against the fire. And somehow or the other, she survived, but her father is in critical condition. And so the point is that when you see that clip, you immediately think of the napalm girl. She survived the war that burned her and later became a UNESCO ambassador. But her suffering, her survival were all given meaning in part of the pain that she lived during the Vietnam War. But what about this girl? What about Ward Jalal al-Sheikh? That's her name, Ward Jalal al-Sheikh Khalil. She tried to escape. Scenes like hers are daily. There are thousands of little children that are being burned. This genocide, and the difference between what happened with the napalm girl in Vietnam is that they don't come filtered through distant photos. You know, it was delayed coverage that you saw. Right now, in Gaza, they come live. The genocide is being live streamed by Palestinian journalists and by ordinary people who refuse to let their suffering go unseen. Burned children, screaming fathers, headless infants, babies having their intestines ripped open. These images, they're just not real, but they're relentless daily. So why won't the world react in that way? Why did one photo of a burned child help end the Vietnam War, whilst thousands of clips showing burning Palestinian children being burnt beyond recognition can't even provoke a ceasefire? And that's a question that is being asked in Mahdi Hassan Zateo. So I want to share the screen here because it's a powerful image where he draws the comparison between the two here. Have a look at this. This is what we call the napalm girl. Why did burning girls matter in Vietnam, but not in Gaza? Here we are, the napalm girl. Can you see that image? And that's the image, and that's the image. The one next door is the girl that was walking through fire on Monday. Walking through fire on Monday. And she survived. Her father and her family and the rest were basically killed. We'll go through this and just look at the video that was being captured by Channel 4. Here we are. I just want to expand the screen. And we can go down to the actual video, and I'm going to basically open it up. Let's just go down here. Here we are. This is a video on Channel 4. So let's expand this and see if we can open this up here.
She stumbles through the flames. 5-year-old Ward Jalal al-Sheikh Khalil.
Look
her
at her.
whole world collapsing beneath her.
Look at her. Look at her. Look at her, people. And cry. How come this image, this powerful image, can't lead the Arab world to say, stop. Stop what's happening.
She stumbles through the flames. 5-year-old Ward Jalal al-Sheikh Khalil, her whole world collapsing beneath her. She was on the roof of the Fahmi al-Jarjawi school in Gaza City, which was hit by an Israeli airstrike at 1 a.m. It had been serving as a shelter where Ward and her family, amongst others, had been staying.
What time was it again? 1 a.m. 1 a.m. when people were basically sleeping. 1 a.m.
Israel says it was harboring terrorists.
Usual excuse, which we've debunked this bullshit all along, they're harboring terrorists.
30 bodies were recovered, but survival is its own punishment. The Israeli drone whines overhead.
That's a girl.
And Ward
That's a girl.
sits amongst the charred remains, stunned, shocked, traumatized, but only too aware of what has happened. She escaped with a few cuts and bruises. But she knows that 2 of her brothers and her 3 sisters were killed.
So she's lost all her siblings. They all died.
And what about her parents? Is her father alive? What about her mother? But her mother is dead too. Her brother Siraj and her father survived, but are badly injured. 53,000, 54,000 dead in Gaza, and 1 little girl holding her uncle's hand, who has lost her mum and her sisters and her brothers, who's been displaced multiple times, who has survived to live in a landscape of ruins in a war that has lasted 1/3 of her lifetime and threatens to last even longer, because the Israeli government says it will continue to attack Gaza until victory, whatever that may mean. Today, the Israel Defense Force put out footage of their troops in Gaza, but not of the airstrike that killed Ward's family. They do little real fighting now because they have weakened Hamas so effectively. The soldiers have been sent to divide Gaza into 3 parts, to control what remains of the population, to control children like Ward, who, if she survives the next attack, will live with loss and grief for the rest of her life.
And Lindsay joins us now from Jerusalem.
So this is what you see. I mean, this is what can you say after this? I mean, what honestly can you say after this? Huh? And then you talk about genocide in South Africa. I mean, who are these fools joking? Who are they lying to? I mean, who are they bluffing? Really? Who are they bluffing? Not only that, what about on the when was it? This was probably I think 2 or 3 days ago. You lose count. There's so many atrocities happening that you can't even remember when exactly they're happening. The case of the pediatric physician, Dr. Ala Al-Najjar. She had just begun work in the emergency room at Nasser Medical Complex, which has been bombed many times. And I can't even recall if that was a hospital that had the mass graves, which we discussed. You know, we have to keep stock of where these atrocities have been committed. But she was working in the emergency room at Nasser Medical Complex when she was suddenly called to return home to Khan Yunis. When she arrived at home, the emergency workers were pulling the charred bodies of her children. They were pulling it from the rubble. The bodies were burnt beyond recognition. Imagine going to your house and seeing just dead children, your own dead children there. These are not other children that they are dealing with daily. Your own children charred beyond recognition. All 10 of her children Israeli had destroyed a home, and she's a doctor. She's not a Hamas militant. They destroyed a home. They killed 9 of the 10 children, wounded a husband and the only surviving child, Adam. And Adam, his arms were amputated. His father is in intensive care. And when asked for comment, the Israeli military basically did not reply, did not respond. So this is the situation. I want you to listen to the story. I want people to listen to the story of Alia Najjar and the fact that all 9 of her children were murdered. This is a report in Democracy Now! Israel bombs home of Gaza pediatrician, killing 9 of her 10 kids in the latest attack on health workers. This is a reality of what people are doing. Let's have a look at this and see this for a second.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
We begin today's show in Gaza. On Friday, an Israeli airstrike hit the home of a Palestinian pediatrician, killing 9 of her 10 children. The children ranged in age from 7 months to 12 years old. Dr. Ala Al-Najjar was working in the emergency room at Nasser Medical Complex at the time of the attack on her home. Her husband, Hamdi, who's also a doctor, was seriously wounded in the strike, is now being treated at Nasser. Their 11-year-old son, Adam, survived, but was also severely wounded. By the time Dr. Ala arrived at her home, emergency workers were pulling the charred bodies of her children out of the rubble. This is her brother-in-law, the uncle of her children, Ali Al-Najjar, who also rushed to the scene.
We searched through the rubble, calling from Yahya to Adam. Answer us. Uncle, is anyone there? Not a single person beside us. Right next to us, my cousin rented 3 shops, or maybe 2, tire repair shops. The fire had spread to the tires, and civil defense extended the hose to extinguish the flames because the hose was at risk of collapsing from the fire. One of the shops was full of rubber tires. As we were trying to put out the fire, we were shocked to find the first charred body. They quickly continued, extinguishing the fire, and we started pulling out charred bodies. One of the civil defense workers was handing me one of the bodies. She, who was standing next to me, recognized it. She said, "This is Ravel. Give her to me." Look at her instinct as a mother, as if her daughter were still alive. She asked to hold her in her arms. She's a pediatrician. See the subconscious reaction? She wanted to embrace her daughter, forgetting that her daughter was burned in front of her eyes. We took those charred children.
She wanted to embrace her daughter, but her daughter was burnt, charred.
Transferred them to Nasser Hospital. I took the doctor with me. She is now caught between the dead, her only surviving child, and her husband, who is between life and death. May God grant her patience, and grant us patience too.
UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese condemned the attack on the Al-Najjar family, describing Israel's targeting of families as a, quote, distinguishable, sadistic pattern of the new phase of the genocide, unquote. We go now to Gaza, where we're joined by Dr. Graham Groom.
So Albanese states it's a sadistic, unconscionable new phase of this genocide.
An orthopedic
sadistic
surgeon with the NHS, that's the National Health Service in London. He's volunteering with the charity Ideals at the Nasser Hospital in Gaza, where he treated Dr. Ala Al-Najjar's sole surviving child, 11-year-old Adam. We thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Groom. Can you describe the horror? What happened to the doctor's family?
Well, it's difficult for me to describe the horror of what happened to her family, because we were in the operating theatre all day, and this little scrap of humanity arrived when we should have finished what we had planned to do. And poor Adam was sent up to us for us to remove his left arm. I think we can imagine what it, or perhaps we can't imagine what it's like for poor Dr. Allah to go to work in the morning, but when she goes to bed at night, if she goes to bed at night, she has only 2 living members of her family. The rest are dead, and the 2 living ones are gravely injured and maybe permanently damaged. What we do in theatre in this ghastly situation is that his little body is covered from top to toe in penetrating injuries. He is literally peppered, and of course the explosion is makes him filthy. So the first thing is to clean him from top to toe, and then look for other injuries. Now, the arm injury was bad enough. He also had a wrist injury on the same side. But the thing that made us worry about him is that he was bleeding from both ears, which means he may have had a fracture of the base of his skull, a laceration on his skull. He was unconscious. And so that a head injury would be a more significant and possibly permanent issue than his arm injury. What we do with that is we clean it, we stabilize the bone, and we remove the dead and devitalized tissue. And I'm pleased to say that this poor little boy, as he is not covered, that would not be a sensible word to use, but he is improving. So when I saw him the following day.
So that's Dr. Graham Groom. He essentially treated Dr. Ala Najjar's sole surviving son. All the rest of the 9 children were murdered, blown up by the Israelis in this shocking scenario. And I mean, the situation has reached such a dire strait that I mean, I don't know how people can defend this kind of unconscionable form of behavior. You know, it appears to be that essentially what we are facing is that the whole aim is to make Gaza as unlivable as possible. You know, we've discussed 972 magazine, plus 972 magazine, a number of times on the stream. And there was this phenomenal journalist, reporter for them, Yuval Abraham. He won the Oscars as well, if you recall, earlier this year. You know, and he exposed the issue of using AI technology to target civilians. A new report reveals that 972 spoke to Israeli soldiers who described that they have been given. These are not. You see, the problem is people assume that sometimes, like Ehud Olmert, by the way, the former prime minister of Israel, he damned Israel this past week by stating that they're engaging in war crimes. But what a lot of these liberals sometimes give the idea that these are rogue soldiers engaging in war crimes, similar to Benny Morris. If you look at his interview with Norman Finkelstein yesterday and Piers Morgan, they give the indication that these are just rogue soldiers operating and the war crimes are not policy. But what 972 magazine has shown is that the soldiers are acting out of a deliberately intentional policy where they've been commanded by virtue of this whole principle of command responsibility to totally flatten and destroy Gaza. Bulldozers, explosives are being used. In the southern city of Rafah, which was originally a safe zone, then Al-Mawasi, a safe zone. So they all told the Palestinians to go to Rafah. That's going to be safe. In the city of Rafah, 73% of buildings are completely destroyed, utterly destroyed, with only about 4% of the infrastructure remaining undamaged. And so it appears to me that the real aim is to basically make it as as bad and as humiliating as possible for the Palestinians. I mean, this is a Miron Rappaport, who was a co-author of the 972 magazine, also on Democracy Now!, was interviewed by Amy Goodman. Listen to what he says in this particular discussion, where the aims and the objective of Gaza are basically being shown and before our very eyes. Our very eyes. You can't hide this. You can't basically hide this any longer. Here we are. Let's just play this for a second.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. We turn now to a new report that reveals how Israel is trying to make Gaza unlivable. It's been well documented that Israeli airstrikes account for mass casualties. Now the independent news outlet 972 magazine has spoken to Israeli soldiers who reveal new details about how they've been systematically using bulldozers and explosives to flatten Gaza from the ground. For example, Gaza's government media office says the Israeli army's destroyed at least 90% of residential neighborhoods in the southern city of Rafah. The 972 report features videos Israeli soldiers shared online, like this one by Avraham Zarviv, who operates a D9 armored bulldozer. His nickname is Flattener of Jabalia, the northern town of Jabalia in Gaza. In this video, he uses his camera to show a flattened landscape in Rafah.
Very good. Givati Brigade, very good. Yes, Rafah. Rafah end, as they say.
Look at that. Look at this. Look at this.
There will be no more battle in Rafah, because there will be no more Rafah. The nation of Israel lives.
For more, we're joined in Tel Aviv by Miron Rappaport, editor and writer at the independent Israeli news site Local Call and a columnist at 972 magazine, where his new piece with Oren Ziv is headlined "Render It Unusable, Israel's Mission of Total Urban Destruction." Miron, welcome back to Democracy Now! Why don't you lay out what you found and these, the access you had, well, because they post them online publicly, to these Israeli soldiers' actual video accounts themselves of what they're doing in Gaza?
I think that Gaza is being destroyed and is already destroyed. This is not really new. We know that. We know that there are very few buildings standing in Rafah. What we have discovered in this investigation, Oren Ziv and I, is that this is a premeditated. That most of it is premeditated. That this is.
See what he says. That the entire thing is not accidental. It's not collateral damage. It is premeditated. It's a distinction.
The routine work of soldiers today, or in the last year, or maybe more than a year, since the beginning of 2024, the routine work is to destroy. That this is what they are doing as a routine army service. They go out in the morning, they either accompany bulldozers or a unit that is responsible for explosives. They go, choose buildings and flatten them in a systematic way. And that the aim is quite, it is being said to them, of course, this is not official orders coming from the general headquarters of the Israeli army, but it is very bluntly told, they're being told, and they are themselves very proud of it, that the real aim is to make it impossible for the Palestinians to return to these areas. We have seen that now in these days in Rafah. We are telling that 4% of the building in Rafah are unhurt, undamaged. Only 4%, a city of 200,000 people before the war. So it is a systematic thing. It's not done it's not during battle, it's not even a result of airstrike, although of course airstrike are responsible for some of the damage. It is a planned thing, and in this I think it is
okay, you heard what he said. It's not even done during battle. It's not even done during battle.
unprecedented.
And I want you to let's look at that report for those who here's a report here. I'll try and get the report for you. Let me share the report, and I want all of you to download it, print it out, and share it. Mohammed, if we can share the screen. This is a report from Plus 972 magazine. Plus 972 magazine. Have you got it there? You go to Plus 972 magazine. If you can't search on it, just click on Google. Plus 972 magazine on Google. Click on it, and then you go to so you go on Google, go to your what you call this, I forget what you call it now on the top, where you type in the actual website. So you just go to 972mag.com, and then it'll open up the site, and here's the article. Here's a complete article I've downloaded. Rendered unusable, Israel's mission of total urban destruction. While airstrikes account for mass casualties, bulldozers and explosives are flattening from the ground. What soldiers say is a systematic campaign to make the strip unlivable. And he goes on to describe this here. One soldier secured 4 to 5 bulldozers. So the demolished houses, for the sake of demolishing houses, not to go and get any terrorists or anything like that, for the sake of destroying houses. And then, of course, these are the videos that they're basically showing. The devastation, aerial bombardments. And according to Plus and Local Call, this was driven by a conscious strategic decision to flatten the area, to ensure that the return of people to these spaces is not something that will happen. Can you see what it is? It's not about getting rid of terrorists. It's about what we've been saying from the beginning of the war, getting rid of the Palestinians, committing genocide. This is genocide and ethnic cleansing at the same time. This is what the whole aim is. Let's go down here. This is Rafah. Where are we? Let's try and make it smaller. Look at that. February 14th, May 10th, Planet Lab. It's like a moon crater. As you go, look what happens to it, how they're flattening this out. No tunnels, nothing to do with Hamas. They are just making it unlivable, a strategic decision to make Gaza as unlivable as possible. Look at this. So, non-operational, devoid of direct, began within the month. As early as January 2024, the Israeli investigative outlet, the hottest place on earth, hottest place in hell, report that the army had carried out the systematic and complete destruction of all buildings near the fence within a kilometer into the strip without them being identified as a terrorist infrastructure. The report quoted soldiers who said that in areas near the border fence, such as Beit Hanun and Beit Lahia, and the Shujaiya neighborhood in the outskirts, as well as the Khirbat Khuzua on the outskirts of Khan Yunis, between 75 and 100% of the buildings had been destroyed by that time, almost indiscriminately. So they're going out to make it, they're going, besides killing, they want to make the area as unlivable as possible. These actions amount to clear violations of the laws of war, according to Michael Safad, an Israeli lawyer and human rights expert. Destruction of individual property, not imperatively demanded by the necessities of war, constitutes a war crime. And there's also a specific and more serious crime of wanton and extensive destruction of property, not justified by military necessity. Among legal experts, human rights activists, there is a significant discussion about the need to establish a crime against the humanity of domicide, the destruction of an area used for habitation. That's what domicide is. And this was back then, when this article was written. Since March, approximately 2,800 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, with 53 per thousand killed and 120,000 injured over the course of the war. And this is another area, the destruction of a place called Tel El Sultan. This is Tel El Sultan. Look at this here. Let's go through this. Tel El Sultan. Look at it. Look how it's destroyed. They wipe it out. They wipe it out. Even the grass is no longer there. Destroyed. The grass is no longer there. Grass is burned dry. See all that greenery? Look what happens to greenery. All gone. All gone. What is this if not sickness? What on earth is this if not sickness? You tell me. And Netanyahu basically endorses this kind of behavior. He endorses this behavior. In December 2024, the UN estimated that 69% of all buildings, including 245,000 housing units, had been damaged, with over 60,000 buildings completely destroyed. By the end of February, that figure had risen to 70,000. According to Adi Ben Nun, a GIS specialist at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, who conducted a satellite analysis for Plus 972 and local court. So, I mean, the aim is destruction. Look, you can read this entire article. Read the entire article. Shocking. This is on, I never can play it. That's a bulldozer. Destroying the building. Destroying it. They're looking for terrorists? What are they doing there? Rubbish. Look at these bastards singing in the distance. The message is clear. We're just going to destroy. And if you look at channel 14, this is the guy, Avram Zarbiv. He described the mode of destruction. I've never seen a tractor in my life, only pictures. We got on tractors, D9 excavators. We learned the craft. We became highly professional. You don't even understand what it's like to bring down a building. 7, 6, or 5 stories, one after another. They're proud of it. They're proud of it. Between October 2024 and January 25, Zarif said that every week he destroyed an average of 50 buildings. Not housing units, buildings. In Rafah, they have nowhere to go. In Jabalia, they have nowhere to go back. Zarif recently returned to serve in Rafah. So the point is that they want to make it as unlivable as possible, uninhabitable as possible.
Very good
Givati Brigade. Very good.
כן, רפיח.
Rafah.
רפיח טוב, כמו שאומרים.
They're proud. Look at these Israeli rats. Jewish rats. Jewish Israeli
יותר
rats.
קרב ברפיח לא יהיה, כי לא תהיה רפיח. עם ישראל חי. כאן אנחנו ברפיח, אפילו מעט שאנחנו עושים. כאילו הקרבנו את נפשנו, והקדוש ברוך הוא יהיה בעזרנו בעזרת השם, שהקרב הזה ברפיח יהיה הקרב האחרון של רפיח. לא יהיה יותר קרב. אתם יודעים למה? כי לא תהיה יותר רפיח. שבת שלום, עד הסוף, עד הניצחון, עד ההתיישבות, עד בניין הבית הגדול. אמן!
Look at that. Why didn't Trump show these pictures to Netanyahu, the bastard? Why didn't he show this? When you enter a house, you blow it up. This is what they're told. This is what the Israeli soldiers are told. Look at this. This is by the Netzarim corridor. By the way, Netzarim was a settlement, an illegal settlement in Gaza. That's why they call it Netzarim. And that's a corridor in central Gaza. Look at the destruction in 2025 February. Read this entire article. There's so much to go through here. Khan Yunis, 31 July 2024. Look at it. Multiple soldiers interviewed described the ceremonial rituals that accompanied the demolitions in Gaza, Jewish rituals. A reservist who said, we'd go through the houses, confirmed there's no intel, and then the engineer would come to the building with 10 kilo, which they'd attach. It was like a show every evening. A senior officer, usually a commander, would get on the radio with a bomb disposal unit, give a speech of why we're here, count down, and then boom, would look back and nothing would be standing. Yotam also spoke about these rituals during his reserve duty. The pilot would get on something and they'd lift an entire row of buildings. Another common practice was burning of houses that Israeli forces had used as temporary military facilities, marking the end of a mission. It was routine. And look at these people here. Israeli soldiers torching homes in Gaza City. Just destroying homes. Why would they do this? Why would they do this? Why? Only a sick human being would do this. And they call them ritualized demolitions. Ritualized demolitions. They serve a political, ideological one to make Gaza unlivable for generations to come. This is in November 2023. Look at this. This is in southern Lebanon. What is that? Are these people being blown up? Never know. It's in southern Lebanon. And since March 2025, from March 25, since the beginning of 2024, they've also demolished 463 buildings in the West Bank as part of military activity, displacing nearly 40,000 Palestinians from Jenin, Nur Shams, Tulkaram camps as part of Operation Iron Wall. What's in West Bank? Is Hamas there? Why are you displacing people in the West Bank? In the Jenin refugee camp, the army has detonated entire residential blocks and bulldozed streets, part of a campaign to re-engineer the camp to suppress Palestinian resistance and undermine the right to return. The military recently announced plans to demolish 116 more homes in Tulkaram and Nur Shams refugee camp. This is in the West Bank. We talk about Gaza all the time. This is the West Bank. So here we are. This is what we are talking about. Render it unusable, Israel's mission of total urban destruction. We're going to bring the stream to an end now. I just wanted to share a few things for the time being, because this is part of our ongoing discussion that we have on Gaza on a weekly basis. I wanted to show and share that, clearly this whole notion of white genocide is just a myth. White genocide, it's a conspiracy theory. You look at the background of white genocide, it's a total and utter conspiracy theory that people need to be fact-checked on. There's no such thing as white genocide. Go. If you are too lazy to do any kind of research, then just go onto Wikipedia. Click in white genocide conspiracy theory, Wikipedia. It'll tell you what it is. It's a white nationalist conspiracy theory that there is a kind of a plot to cause the extinction of white people through immigration, forced assimilation, and genocide. And that's why you had this false idea of whites being subjected to genocide in South Africa. This is what Trump... these are the type of people that are telling you about what's happening in Gaza. I mean, if they can lie in your face, they lie straight to your face. How can you trust such people? These are evil people. These are evil people. These are sadistic people. These are satanic people. These are people that you should not be basically associating with. And this is the question. Why are leaders, of the so-called corrupt leaders of the Muslim world, associating with such leaders? We've spoken about this. Why is MBS doing this? Why was he kissing the boots of Trump? Why was the Emir of Qatar and the Emiratis? Why were they getting their hairs? They were throwing their ladies to them. They were throwing their ladies to Trump. I mean, someone made the point that not without any kind of justification, that if Trump stated he wanted to have sex with their wives, then give their wives to him. This is a sickness that you have. A man who's a liar, a con man, a scumbag, a hatchet man. So the point I was trying to say in this entire discussion is that there is no genocide in South Africa. It's a joke. We laugh at Trump. We laugh, and we are laughing at him. The only genocide that we are seeing presently that is being live streamed before us is the Israeli genocide. White genocide, it's a political myth. It's based on pseudoscience, pseudo-history, ethnic hatred, and it's driven by a kind of a psychological panic, often termed white extinction anxiety. This is the problem. These whites believe they're going to become extinct. So objectively, you have a situation that white people are not dying out of facing any kind of extermination. But the purpose of the conspiracy theory is to justify this kind of commitment to a white nationalist agenda in support of calls to violence. And I mean, the people who have popularized this theory, people like, I think, what's his name, David Duke and David Lane, throughout, and even I was just reading, surprisingly enough, the Prime Minister of Italy, Meloni, the female Prime Minister Meloni, who was at one time in the 90s part of a neo-fascist right-wing, far-right extremist movement, she supported that. So the reality of the situation is that a lot of what's happening in the world a lot of the leaders in the world are people who are intellectually and morally bankrupt and fundamentally and utterly rotten to the core. These are leaders that you have to stand up, this idea, and that's what the Quran called you, stand up against corrupt and evil leaders who have no basic role to play in society, that are an antithesis of goodness and humanity and values. They need to be replaced. They are tyrants. And look at Surah 4 verse 75, what it says about standing up against tyrants and replacing them, and the people who are suffering calling up for liberators. This is what you need to do. So we've come to the end of the stream. As it is, as my suggestions always, that there is no copyright on any of our programs. There's no copyright whatsoever. People have the right to share, edit, provided you don't take it out of context, but share it with as many people as possible. And we will continue talking about this and updating you as and when issues and incidents take place. It's getting pretty late here in South Africa. I don't know if there are any questions out there, but I am a bit tired this evening. I had a long day in court. I run criminal trials, and I run trials every day of my life. I don't sit in an office behind a desk sipping coffee. On the front line running trials daily. And whilst there's not a lot of physical activity involved in that, but there's a lot of standing, a lot of thinking that needs to be taking place. You have to think on your ground, on your feet all the time. And so, therefore, I'm a bit under the weather today, but I thought this is important to deal with during the week. So take the least you can do, members, both subscribe and like and share. Go on your YouTube channel and share the link of the South African Debate Initiative YouTube channel with your friends on WhatsApp, on your social media accounts. I no longer have access to my social media account. My Facebook account is now locked out. I've been locked out from the 17th of December. I've been speaking a lot about the genocide. I no longer have access to it. I don't know how to access it again. I had I think the maximum about 5,000 supporters. So it was quite a large, that's the maximum you can have. And I had a 5,000, what you call this, friends, which you could basically share content with. I don't have that anymore. And we have been shadow banned. Myself and Mohammed have been shadow banned. Other channels in the United Kingdom that don't talk about this and talk about other personal issues don't get shadow banned. And a lot of these channels, possibly individuals, have deep pockets. They don't even talk about what's happening in the Middle East. They don't even talk about what's happening with the leaders. We believe that you have to basically discuss everything and anything. You have to stand up for justice, even if it's against your own next of kin. And that's been the motto of the South African Debate Initiative. And that's been the motto of the Coventry Faith Foundation. Brother Muhammad, who's doing some sterling work recently in his own way in the city of Coventry and the surrounding areas, support him with the initiatives, and share the stream and edit the stream if you want. Take out the content from the stream. Don't edit it in the sense of taking what we are saying out of context. Quote us entirely, but share this. Put this on your TikTok and Instagram, whatever the case is. Share this en masse so that people can view this. So till then, this is YUSUF ISMAIL from the South African Debate Initiative, signing off. And I wish all of you with the greetings of peace. Good evening, good afternoon, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.